What's going on, everybody? Cowboy C3. We had an interesting visitor come into town today. Got some unfortunate injury news regarding cornerback Deron Bland. And Jerry let you know who's going to be playing on the defensive line for the foreseeable future. What does that mean for players like Mozzie Smith? All that coming next here on Cowboy Spit.
Here we go! Yeah, here we go! Wait, take
Cowboys. Throws back of the end zone. There's CeeDee Lamb.
What's going on, everybody? Cowboy C3. We are live again on this beautiful Wednesday. Jadeveon Clowney graced us with his presence today in Frisco. I think the Cowboys may be a little bit concerned about the lack of pass rush against the Eagles on Thursday night. I'm not really sure why, because they were able to create pressure a little bit more in the second half. Let's not get it misconstrued. The Eagles have an excellent offensive line. They're very, very good. Jordan Mailata is, probably the best left tackle in football. They just got a bunch of guys on that offensive line that are really, really good. And the Cowboys had a little bit of trouble with rushing just four people producing pressure on Jalen Hurts. And I don't think that that's a real issue. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But Brian Schottenheimer had a lot to say. Well, he had a little bit to say about Jadeveon Clowney coming to visit. This is what he said.
With him there, guy's, really good football player. He's missed playing the game a little bit, and the film obviously looks good. And, we're always in the business of, seeing what's out there and keeping an eye on all good football players. But I would say the personal relationship I have with him, the problems I know he can create both in the run and the pass, is the main reason he's here.
How much did that Eagles game prompt this? Did that tell you anything, or was this something that you were thinking about doing before that?
No, this is something that, again, we just been monitoring. We'll deal with every position. Again, I feel great about our defensive line depth. But, anytime you have a chance to potentially add good football players, why wouldn't you kick the tires?
I understand it. I do. Your defensive ends, particularly in the first half, didn't apply a tremendous amount of pressure to the quarterback. I do believe, however, when you're playing a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, even if you do apply pressure to him, he always presents the threat of being able to run the football because he's so good on his feet. Every quarterback in the NFL is not like Jalen Hurts. And if you have a very good offensive line behind the quarterback, or in front of a quarterback like that, it's super tough to keep him contained. My biggest issue wasn't really necessarily getting pressure on the quarterback. My concern that I saw was more of a schematic thing where the defensive ends were crashing inside, letting the tackle, get a hook block on them and kind of sealing them off and allowing Jalen Hurts to escape with no spy. That's more schematics than it is of being able to apply pressure. I think even though Russell Wilson looked pretty good on his feet on Sunday against Washington, I think you'll see a more, not stationary quarterback, but definitely not as mobile as Jalen Hurts. But as the season progresses, like the week after, you face Caleb Williams, who's another guy that can escape and run around. And then in week 4, you face Jordan Love, who's another guy that can escape and run around. So I don't really think, of course, like if you can apply pressure to the quarterback and get him, flushed to one side of the field, you can contain him a little bit better. But the biggest key should be keeping him inside the pocket. And that comes from just schemes. You can't crash the inside and then have no spot and think that you're just going to keep these guys contained, man. A lot of these quarterbacks in the NFL these days can move around. But Jadeveon Clowney, another report came out that said Jadeveon Clowney, even though his visit, today went pretty well, that he would probably leave town without a contract, which, doesn't mean that he won't end up here. Him and Brian Schottenheimer have a very long, they were together in Seattle. He's very familiar with Jadeveon Clowney. They seem to, know each other pretty well. And, I wouldn't mind if Jadeveon Clowney came in. It definitely would give the defensive line some much needed depth. It'll get you a veteran player that is very good, like he said, against the run and the pass. And, you're going to need it. Long season, players are going to get hurt. Just the way it is. Before we get into the DaRon Bland thing, the Cowboys particularly were happy with against some very good defensive ends. And last year he had a really hard time just holding blocks, getting his feet set, doing all kinds, doing a lot of things. Booker showed a lot of composure in his NFL debut against a really good team. Cooper Beebe looked comfortable. Tyler Smith is Tyler Smith. He got beat on one play, and got a holding penalty, but that was kind of surprising. This group was supposed to be the weakness, and you may have had just a good game, and the rest of the season could go really bad. But in this one game, it gave us a little bit of promise that these guys may be all right. Last year they had a hard time opening up holes for Rico Dowdle. They had a tough time doing that. There were some running lanes for, Miles Sanders on the 51-yard run. That was schemed up perfect. It was blocked perfect. Everything happened good. Got chased down by a linebacker, but it was blocked extremely well. And you didn't see much of that last year, man. And it was impressive. I thought it was impressive. I thought they did really well. Offensive coordinator Clayton Adams seemed to be really happy with it. Everybody holding their own. Terrence Steele did a good job. Everybody did a really good job. A lot of that credit goes to Connor Riley, who's very familiar with Cooper Beebe. That was his offensive line coach at Kansas State. He's been working with Tyler Guyton a lot. He's been working with Tyler Booker a lot. You can tell that these guys are comfortable with each other. They have trust in him and in their offensive line coach. And I look forward to seeing what they're going to do for the rest of the season. I really do. And footwork was good. There was a lot of good things about this offensive line. And the good part about that is that they're young. They seem to be very disciplined. They always talk about, Coach Schottenheimer always talks about emphasizing discipline and accountability. Those guys seem to do that. And I hope that this is a sign of good things to come. They kept Dak upright all night. He escaped one sack, and turned really nothing into something. But for the most part, he had clean pockets to throw in. And it showed. It thought Dak played a pretty good game. Now, this is the Freak Nasty Neighbor shirt. This is the one. This is the one I'm gonna use. You're about to go out and do some bad things in. Now, scary news coming out of Cowboy land. Cowboy cornerback DaRon Bland suffered a right foot injury in Monday's practice and could miss multiple weeks of time due to the injury. Good news about that is it's not the left foot, which was the foot that kept him out of 10 games last year. There's no real diagnosis of what happened to his foot. They're just labeling it a right foot injury. He did not participate in practice today. And there's a report, multiple sources are saying that he suffered the injury in practice on Monday and that he can miss multiple weeks. We'll get more information on that as it comes. Malik Hooker also had a foot injury. That's all it was labeled in, but he had limited participation in practice today. In the secondary that's already kind of thin, you're talking about your starting corner, your newly paid starting corner, and your starting safety going out week 1 of the season, and DaRon Bland getting hurt in practice. Hopefully it's nothing serious. Hopefully it's something that's not going to keep him out for too long of a time. You have a couple of games here in these next 2 weeks where, even though the Giants have a fantastic receiver in Malik Neighbors, other than Malik Neighbors, they don't have a lot of weapons. Chicago has some really good receivers, but their O-line and their quarterback can be erratic at times. Like Monday night, Caleb Williams started off, I think in the first half, he was 9 of 10. And in the second half, I think he completed 4 passes. It's just one of those things like where if it's going to happen, get it over early in the year. So when the time, especially after the bye week, and I think the bye week this year is in week 10, because once you get around that Thanksgiving time frame, the Cowboys got a rough schedule, and you're going to need to be all, full steam ahead when that time comes. Unfortunate to hear about DaRon Bland. Hopefully it's nothing serious, maybe miss a game, maybe 2, and he'll be back. But, last year he injured the other foot. He had a stress fracture in his left foot, and it cost him 10 games. So we'll see. Hopefully it's nothing real big. Other than that, man, the Cowboys are pretty clean. Your corner and your safety, that's a big deal, of course. But, injury-wise, they're still pretty healthy. This is a long season, like Brian Schottenheimer said in the first part of his interview. It's long, and there's going to be some attrition for sure. And you just hope these backups can come in, play solid football, especially if the player's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Just play solid football and kind of carry the torch until that player comes back. There is a lot of things that are going on this week, especially with this game, because it's been 14 years since the Cowboys have started 0-2. It is the second longest winning streak. Well, first 2 games of the season. It's the current longest. It is the second longest active streak coming into the 2025 season. The only team with a longer active streak than that, I think, is the Green Bay Packers. And I think they've done it for like the last, I want to say 18, 19 years. And them going 1-0, with them winning their first game, that streak continues for them. Dak Prescott is 1-0 after a 4-0, is 4-0 after a week 1 loss. Only 2 other quarterbacks have a better record than him, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers is 6-0. And Tom Brady is 3-0. The only quarterbacks since 2010 that they lost week 1, they haven't lost in week 2. So that's some promising news. And I don't really think that this is a must-win game. But at the same time, I think it's a very important game because you don't want to start out in a division 0-2. I don't really concern myself with just going out and like, hey, the team is 0-2. But in the divisional standings, yes, it's an important game. Do I think it's a must-win game? Not really. I don't think so. This is what Brian Schottenheimer had to say about it,
though. Does this game this week take on added importance because it's your second division game? It's not just your first home game. Like, you don't want to get too much in a hole at all in the division.
No, we don't think that way, Todd. I think, it's important because it's the next game. It's another championship opportunity. Again, like I said, we feel like, we played well enough in spots to beat Philadelphia, but we didn't. So you don't look back, you look forward. But, we don't look at, okay, this is a must win. It's got to be that. We just go play the game. And I really do believe that if you start thinking the other way, I think it kind of distracts you from the main thing, which is if you go and play well, you have the best chance of winning.
You've been around.
Now, my bad. I think my mic was on mute again. You have a lot of players that well, you have a lot of people that think that this game may be a must-win game. I'm not so for sure that it is. I think you add a lot of pressure to yourself as a team when you come out and you feel like that is a must-win game. Sure, you do not want to start out in the division 0-2. That's a given, right? You never want to do that. But one thing that you don't want to do, one thing that you do want to do is understand that it is an important game. You don't want to start out in the division 0-2. That's something that you don't want to do. But a must-win game, second game of the season, I don't believe that. I do believe that it is important to start off hot. You have some guys on this team like that are very, very good once they have a week 1 loss. I don't know if you guys can hear me before, but Dak Prescott is 4-0 after he's lost in week 1. Only 2 other quarterbacks have a better record than him since 2010. Aaron Rodgers is 6-0, and Tom Brady is 3-0. They're the only quarterbacks that have a better record than him in 0-1 losses after a 1-0 start. 0-1 start. Cowboys have gone 14 straight seasons without going 0-2. It's the second longest streak in the NFL. It's beginning with the 2025 season. Well, excuse me, going into the 2025 season. Green Bay Packers are the only team that has a better record than them, and I want to say is either 18 or 19 years straight. They go, if they start the season 0-1, they do not start the season 0-2. So there's some things that are on the line. It's a very important game, especially being a divisional game. But as far as being a must-win game, just to recap, because I think I had the mic on mute again. Cornerback DaRon Bland suffered a right foot injury Monday in practice, could be out multiple weeks. It's not the left foot, it's the right foot this time. Last year was a left foot, and that it was a stress fracture in the left foot that kept him out for 10 weeks. Hopefully this is just something. There's no diagnosis of the injury. There's nothing that has come out that said like, hey, he broke his foot or he twisted his foot or something like that. It's an unfortunate situation that's early in the season. So who plays corner? Well, that's a great question. Kaiir Elam will just move outside. What'll happen is that somebody have to go in and play the nickel. There you go. Somebody have to come in and play the nickel. That person would probably be Andrew Booth. That would be my guess, is that Andrew Booth would come in and play the nickel. Had a rough week 1 in the preseason, but week 2 he got a pick, and it seemed like his confidence, went up pretty high. This is one of those type of situations where, man, I don't even think you bring back Childress. I think if you want to bring somebody back, man, why wouldn't you bring back Israel Mukuamu? Came in last year, filled in for some games for you, played pretty well. Not real sure. It was one of those players where I thought there was, and I said it when we were talking about the 53-man roster, is one of those guys who I felt like was kind of a shock that he didn't make the football team. Hopefully, though, Derek, is one of those things where Bland will be out for, this week, maybe next week too. You play 2 teams that are not, I'm not saying they're not that great, but they have their struggles. Play the Giants this week. You got the Bears next week. Caleb Williams on Monday night came out and started up the first half lights out. I think he was 9 or 10, something like that. And then after that in the second half, he didn't play very well. Giants did not score a touchdown week 1. Russ looked flustered. And there was a lot of talk this week that maybe they would bring in Jackson Dart, but their head coach Brian Daboll come out and said that they are going to start Russ in week 2. Russ did look pretty good on his feet though, and that's one of the things that the Cowboys seem to have a problem with. Nah, Booth didn't get cut, my brother. He didn't get cut. He's there. Which was surprising because Andrew Booth made the team and Israel Mukuamu didn't. I like Israel Mukuamu. I thought he should have made the team, man. But Booth, after he got that interception, I think in that second preseason game, after he got that interception, man, his confidence level rose and he started playing pretty good. And do I think he played better than Mukuamu? Nah, I don't. But I don't choose the roster. You know what I'm saying? You got professionals that do that. So, injury wise though, Cowboys are pretty clean. They seem to be pretty clean. You got Malik Neighbors and DaRon Bland, both with foot injuries. Malik Neighbors, limited participant in practice. DaRon Bland, of course, did not participate in practice, and it looks like he could be out for a little bit of time. Hopefully it recovers quick, like I said, man, and we can get past it. You know, team can get past it, and they can go on and do good things. I don't, even though Kyer Elam got beat on the deep route, kind of got caught looking back at the quarterback and let Jahan Dotson get past him. Recovery speed was good though. Caught up to him real quick and then let him, at least he didn't let him score. Elam had an excellent training camp. And I know that a lot of people are kind of down on Kyer Elam. First round draft pick out of Florida, was supposed to be an all-world cornerback coming into the NFL. And he just really hasn't found his stride. He had a really, really, really good training camp this year, though. And if and I said it in a previous podcast, if Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones weren't the center of attention in training camp, you would have heard a lot more about Kyer Elam because of the type of camp that he was having. He was having a fantastic training camp. He had a fantastic training camp. It just got overshadowed by, the crazy stuff that was going on and it ultimately led to, Micah Parsons' departure. But I thought that he played very well, gave up a deep pass. But other than that, the other night, he didn't. I mean, 3 catches. I think Jahan Dotson had 3 catches for 57 yards, and 51 of those yards came on one play. So other than that one catch, Jahan Dotson lined up in the slot for most of the game. Kyer Elam lined up as the nickel corner for most of the game. And if DaRon Bland is out for several weeks, I'm pretty sure Kyer Elam will just move outside opposite of Trayvon Diggs. And then you'll probably rotate a nickel corner until you find somebody that sticks. But that's football though, man. It happens. It happens to the best of us. A lot of talk this week about CeeDee Lamb and the 4 drops. So I said Thursday, right after the game happened, that the type of competitor that CeeDee Lamb is, he'll bounce back from this quick. And you can listen to him for yourself, man, and hear what he has to say about it.
Honestly, I feel like, I can't point no fingers at nobody else, you know what I'm saying? And I take full accountability and everything else that come with it because, as for me as a player, I pray for moments like that, you know what I'm saying, and the ball to come my way. And obviously for me to not come up with it, bro, it stings a little bit. But I will tell you, if you think I'm not coming back any times harder than this, you got another thing coming.
I'm surprised you just because when you talk to training game about how the key thing was you have to drop the ball and I don't know if you had 2 drops off.
Yeah, I didn't. But hey, God has a mysterious way of humbling folks. And I did come in with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. But again, it's a lesson well learned. And again, I deserve everything that come with it.
Now, he went on to say in that interview afterwards that they asked him about going in the blue tent. And they said, the team made him go in the blue tent to get checked out because they thought he may have a concussion because of when, after the drop on 4th down, he sat on the ground and put his hands on his head. He said, no, the team made me go. He's like, but I wasn't hurt. That was just disappointment. I was disappointed in myself because of, dropping the pass, not just dropping the 4th down pass, but, dropping passes throughout the game. Now, one thing that he said is that he came in the game with a chip on his shoulder, and you could tell that in the first half for sure, in the first 3 quarters for sure, that he was playing with the edge. He was out, the CD was lights out. Yeah, I think he had 75 yards receiving in the first quarter. But that CeeDee Lamb, he's an excellent football player. Most of the time, though, especially if you have yak guys, you're gonna have to deal with some drops. Now, people have their own opinions about the drops. A lot of people are like, it's just a lack of concentration. I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks that CeeDee Lamb can't catch a football. That would be crazy for you to think. But I said it after the game on Thursday that maybe it's fatigue. It could be. You go out, you play really hard in the first half, you play hard in the third quarter, you come out in the fourth quarter, and anybody's played receiver knows they first thing they tell you is keep your eyes still. Don't bounce, don't let your eyes bounce when the ball is in the air. And it's just one of those things, man, to where it's like concentration, especially when you're tired, that comes into play. CeeDee Lamb is an elite receiver in the NFL, arguably top 3 receiver in the NFL. Dak Prescott came out after the game and said, basically kind of supported CeeDee Lamb and said, like, hey, like he had a bad game for sure. You know what I mean? Like, we all didn't play up to the part that we thought we should play, and it resulted in us losing the football game. But if you think I'm not throwing to CeeDee Lamb anymore, and I don't trust him anymore, like that's the furthest thing from my mind. I think in order to take some pressure off, and I'm not going to get into too much of what I think the game plan should be because that's for Saturday, but just get George Pickens more involved. George Pickens had 3 catches on 5 targets the other night. And, new guy in the offense, new system. Of course, they're going to design plays for CeeDee Lamb, but get Pickens involved more. Get Turpin involved more. I wasn't very happy, or I wasn't very I won't say happy, but I wasn't very not surprised either. Just not very confident in the performance of your starting slot receiver, Jalen Tolbert. A lot of times, and Tolbert has a tendency sometimes to look lost. If that's a good way to describe it. Looks kind of disinterested, kind of standing around in plays. His run plays going where even on the run from Miles Sanders, he was kind of just standing there. He kind of just watched the play. It's like Jalen Tolbert has a tendency to do that. Get him involved in the game, or if you're not, let him go. One of the things that really did not surprise me is that one, CeeDee Lamb was open the entire game. Open. Created great yards after catch all the time. It was just a little bit surprising with the drops. It was surprising for me, and especially for him to have 4 drops in one game. That's something that's just wasn't his best night. You can kind of look past that. And just look forward to CeeDee Lamb having a big season. I don't think that it'll be a problem going forward. But like I said, with these receivers, especially these elite receivers that have great yards after catch, they're gonna drop some footballs. Jamar Chase in Cincinnati, fantastic wide receiver, has a tendency to drop the ball. It's just one of those things, man, where they're in their brain, their hands on the ball, automatically expect to catch it. They're looking upfield to try to get wherever they're going to try to get more yards. And you lose sight of things, and sometimes you lose concentration and you drop the football, man. But I just don't think that it'll be a problem moving forward. My last topic of tonight is kind of a semi-preview of what may be in store for Sunday against the Giants. Jerry came out and said that they will keep the same rotation for their defensive linemen, including, especially the defensive tackles, moving forward into week 2. I think that spells out bad news for Mazi Smith, man. I just don't think that's good at all. For you to be first round draft pick and be a healthy scratch 2 weeks in a row, man, that's not very good. But, some positive things is that Kenny Clark, his reaction to the snap on Saturday was the best of any defensive tackle on the team. He had a 0.89 second reaction time to the snap of the football average on Thursday night. That is a key indicator right there of why Mozzie Smith is not on the football. I've said it 10 million times that he just looks slow off the snap, which is strange to me because he's literally lined up right next to the football. Like he's looking right at the ball. If the ball is snapped, man, you get off the ball. It's just kind of a thing to me that's just it's kind of a weird thing about him is that how slow he is off the ball. I don't know if he keeps a roster spot, man. I really don't. But the Giants coming in, they're 0-1. I watched the game on Sunday, and there was a couple of things that I took away from it. One, offensively, with the exception of Malik Neighbors, they're not great. Cam Scatterboo kind of came in, provided a spark, putting his head down, getting tough yardage. But I mean, he still averaged 2.6 yards per carry. I think it was nothing spectacular. Malik Neighbors, of course, looked good, but Russell, especially in the second half, looked extremely flustered. And there was a couple plays where the pocket was clean, but on the left side, he just didn't trust it. So he kind of rolled into pressure. You understand what I'm saying? Because he didn't trust his backside that was going to be safe. I think that this would be a great opportunity for these defensive ends to really get loose in this football game. But we'll talk more about that on Saturday. Talked about it a little bit before on this one. Do I think it's a must win? No, but I do think it's very, very important. I just don't think that it would be a good thing to start the season, not only the season off 0-2, but start out 0-2 in the division. I don't think that would be a good thing at all. But like I said, though, and Coach Schottenheimer said the same thing. If you put pressure on yourself into like, hey, this is a must-win game, then you put a lot of unnecessary pressure on yourself, and unnecessary pressure on the team because you get into that mindset, oh, we can't lose, and then you play not to lose. You don't play to win, and the most important thing is to play to win. Just go out and play a football game, play it to win, and I think they'll be just fine. But the Giants defensively, that's a really good football team. I think against Washington, they held Washington down, for a long time, man, because they were on the field a whole lot. They got tired. They have a really good defensive football team. Dexter Lawrence on the defensive line is an absolute animal. Like that dude is phenomenal, and it's gonna put a whole lot of pressure on these guards, particularly Tyler Booker. Tyler Booker kind of escaped one because Jalen Carter don't know how to hold spit in his mouth. But this week, you ain't going to have that problem. And these dudes are going to be, they're going to come out the deck for real. Good test, especially for the offensive line, how good they played Thursday night. They need to have a similar performance on Sunday. And I think they'll be all right. But we'll talk about, keys to the game, keys to victory on Saturday. 0-1 start, man, but there was a lot of positive things that happened in the football game that makes you think that, hey, man, this team might be all right. I love the way Brian Schottenheimer is holding this team accountable. That is something that the Cowboys haven't had here in a long, long time, and it's kind of a breath of fresh air. Younger coach, relates to the players very well, has relationships with the players, and he's a guy that's also going to hold them to the fire, hold them accountable for everything that they do on the football field and off the football field. And I think that's a great thing. I think that's something that has been much needed here in Dallas, and called an excellent game on Thursday. I thought he called a great game on Thursday. And in a lot of ways, I think he outcoached Sirianni. Just didn't show on the scoreboard at the end. We could talk about the 4 drops all day. You could talk about Miles Sanders fumbling, after a 51-yard run when he got ran down by a linebacker. We could talk about a whole lot of things, man, but got to put it together. Hopefully, I'm hoping that Jaden Blue gets an opportunity, and this would be a good game, good, tough, hard-nosed game for him to get an opportunity in. Not real sure why he was a scratch on Thursday. Maybe they feel like he's not comfortable enough with the playbook. And one thing that I did say, a while back is that if you're not good with pass protection for the Dallas Cowboys, you're probably not going to play, because the main priority, and you can see it, the main priority this year is trying to keep number 4 upright and keep him around for the entire season and not having missed, weeks because of various injuries that could be prevented, especially if the offensive line blocked a little bit better. But, big game coming up Sunday. Schedule will go like this. On Saturday, we'll do Cowboy Keys to Victory. We'll do that. We'll try to do that early in the day. I know everybody Saturday night is looking forward to this Canelo Crawford fight. I'm looking forward to it, man. I'll tell you what I think about that on Saturday too. I guess I'll give a prediction for that on Saturday too. But it's a big fight, man. It's a huge fight. There's a lot of people talking about this one. It's Crawford has been pound for pound best fighter for a while, but at 154 he fought Madrimov. He didn't look like the 147 Crawford that beat the hell out of Spence, a couple months before that. He didn't look like that. And you can tell Madrimov bothered him. Some of them shots bothered him. He's going up 2 weight classes up to 168, skipped 160, going up to 168 to fight, one of the best fighters, if not the best fighter in boxing, in Canelo Alvarez. Man, that is super exciting. Super duper exciting. Bud seems ultra confident going in. Like, some of these press conferences are wild. I'm looking forward to seeing Friday, the final weigh-in, and just seeing how that goes. This is one of those things, man, where like these two dudes, Canelo's normally a pretty level-headed dude. Only time I've really seen him ever really go off in a pre-fight press conferences and all that stuff is when he slapped Caleb Plant. But Bud seems to be getting under his skin because of his confidence, and he just and Bud's telling me, like, I'm gonna whoop your ass. I got a blueprint. Like, we finna whoop your ass. And Canelo don't like that. But we'll talk about that on Saturday too, man. But I'm looking forward to that. But we'll talk about that Saturday. Sunday, I'll do the Blitz with the crew on Man Down, and then right after the game, we'll go live right after the game, and we'll talk about hopefully this Cowboy victory against the Giants. I seriously think they'll beat the Giants though. And then we'll start talking about the Bears after that. Yeah. But man, it's football season, man. It's in full strength. Super excited. Not just about the Cowboys, man, just about football in general. I'm excited. I think I've been to a high school football game every Friday since the season started. I like football, man. I like to go watch it. But anyway, all right, y'all. Saturday, we'll break down this matchup. We'll talk about the keys to victory. We'll give a final injury report going into Sunday, before the game. Hopefully get some good news about DaRon Bland. Hopefully it's just, a sprain, keep him out a week or two, and then, carry on about his business. Hopefully it's not something that'll keep him out for an extended amount of time. But I'm sure in the next couple of days, we'll get a better idea of what's actually wrong, and then, what kind of timetable we're looking at with him coming back. All right, y'all. Cowboy C3. I will see y'all on Saturday. You guys have a great rest of the week, man, and we'll talk to y'all soon. All right, peace.